Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today. And we also want to tell you we're sponsored today by Patriot Mobile, the conservative choice for mobile phone service. Join the conversation. And more about Patriot Mobile later in the podcast. Jim, we turn to the pages, actually, of the Washington Post for a good martini today, and a column from longtime political prognosticator Stu Rothenberg. An opinion piece here that leads to the headline, Can Republican Senators Get to 60 Seats in 2018? And he points out the upcoming Senate class is unusually unbalanced. Only 8 Republican Senate seats are up for election in 2018, compared with 25 Democratic seats, including 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats. 10 of those Democratic seats are in states carried by Trump. He points out that the few Republican seats that are up, the only one that's really competitive is probably going to be in Nevada, where Dean Heller is up for re-election. He says others could potentially get sticky in the primary season, like Arizona with Jeff Flake, maybe Texas with Ted Cruz, maybe Utah, depending on what Orrin Hatch decides to do. But he says ultimately those are going to be messy primaries potentially, but Republicans should hold on to the seats in the general election. On the other hand, 5 Democratic senators in the class represent states normally classified as anywhere from leaning Republican to strongly Republican. Indiana, Missouri, Montana, North Dakota, and West Virginia. 2 other states are pure swing states, Florida and Ohio. And 3 states often lean Democratic, but were carried by Trump last month, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So, Jim, you've got Republicans running everything, which means the midterms usually don't go in the way of that party. But given the states where these seats are up, I think you can at least anticipate having a good shot at winning maybe 4 or 5 of them. I think McCaskill in Missouri, I think Donnelly in Indiana, and depending on whether Heidi Heitkamp ends up in the Trump cabinet, North Dakota could be ripe for pickup. Republicans have a chance to really beef up the majority here.
Yeah, I'm going to take listeners back to the National Review cruise after the 2012 elections. Romney has just lost. A whole bunch of winnable Senate races have not broken the right way for Republicans, and everybody's feeling kind of down. And John Fund says, hey, wait a minute. There's no need for despair. Republicans could go out and they have a very good chance of winning the Senate in the midterms. And I remember my colleague Ramesh Ponnuru rolling his eyes, kind of, feeling no, Republicans have just had a really debilitating setback. We shouldn't think like things are doing great. We should be realistic about the party's problems and need to be more competitive. And lo and behold, it turned out that, yes, the Republicans did go out and win the seats they needed to win in the midterm elections. Now, and I should point out that if the Democratic plan is like, look, it may not break out this way. We could win in Utah. Yeah, you could. I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it, at least at this point. We'll see how things shake out. I'd like a better backup plan if I'm a Democrat that, don't worry, we'll pick off one of those seats. Also worth noting, though, that the last 3 elections, the president or the one party has won, and the midterm has promptly gone terrible for that party. You could chalk it up to buyer's remorse. You could chalk it up to kind of the different demographics of presidential elections versus midterm elections. But you know what? 2004 election day, or right after election day, Republicans are feeling terrific. And then in 2006, Democrats take the House and Senate. 2008, we are all socialists now, as the Newsweek cover announced. Obama had ushered in this new age. The Republicans had become a rump regional party, and lo and behold, 2010 midterms, they win back the Senate, win back the House, win a whole bunch of Senate seats. 2012, Obama gets reelected, and Democrats are happy again, and everything will be great. And then, of course, the 2014 midterms. So, if you feel like there's a certain kind of pendulum effect to U.S. politics, there's a decent chance Americans will look at the first 2 years of the Trump presidency and say, I don't know if I like that part, and elect Democrats in response. Nirvana may not suddenly arrive, or maybe the country will be doing great, and there's all that stuff. But what I think should really worry Democrats is that if the Republicans defy that trend and people feel like the country's on the right track 2 years from now, then the Republicans have a good year. And if they have a good year, then all of a sudden you've got that 60-seat majority, which was, let's face it, unthinkable when you go back to what the political environment was back in 2008. And all of a sudden Republicans can really get a lot of stuff done under a Trump presidency. So we'll see how things shake out from here. But it is worth noting that as bad as it feels for Democrats now, it is conceivable it will get worse 2 years from now.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of it comes down to what kind of candidates Republicans can recruit for those Senate seats. A lot of those seats, at least at this point, are going to be defended by the Democratic incumbent, which in some cases will make it harder. In other cases might make it a little bit easier. I think McCaskill and Donnelly, given the margins that Republicans won those states by just a few weeks ago, could be in real trouble. And I've heard rumors that Sean Duffy might be looking at that Wisconsin Senate seat. So could be some fun Senate races coming along in 2018. All right, on to the bad martini now, Jim, and we go back to the terrorist attack at the Christmas market in Berlin. And at the time, you've got a lot of mainstream outlets, of course, pointing out that it was the truck. It was the truck that killed people. A truck attack killed 12 people and injured others. Then there was the detaining of the Pakistani migrant, and then later they determined that there was not enough evidence to hold and charge him. But now, courtesy of CBS News and other outlets, of course, we've got a new suspect identified. Law enforcement sources told CBS News that police are searching for Anas Amri, a native of Tunisia. The sources said Amri left personal documents in the truck that rammed into the market on Monday, killing 12 people and injuring nearly 50 others. German media outlets have identified the Tunisian man as an asylum seeker who was registered in the North Rhine-Westphalia in western Germany. In what appears to be the first big break since this investigation began, law enforcement sources said they found the suspect's ID and asylum papers under the driver's seat. Genius. Amri, believed to be 23 or 24 years old, was known to police. The suspect is probably armed, obviously dangerous, and the hunt is on to find him. The hunt for the killer or killers took on an added urgency after ISIS claimed responsibility. We are also learning more about the first victim of the attack, Lukas Urban, the 37-year-old Polish truck driver who was found dead in the cab of the truck by investigators. He had been shot and stabbed. So, Jim, the mainstream media loves to tell us not to jump to conclusions when we hear these stories breaking. Obviously, it's smart to wait for the facts to come in, but I don't think anybody's shocked by what we're seeing here.
There is a mordantly grim, humorous meme that goes around Facebook and Twitter at times like this. It features a news anchor from South Park imploring viewers, now listen, everyone, let's not jump to conclusions. And it's Islam. Now, some might say that's an unfair way of putting these things, but look, when you hear about a terrible event happening, which something seems to be a deliberate attack, killing lots of people at a target that is symbolically Christian, well, gee, who would have motive to do something like that other than some Islamist type who sympathizes with or allies himself with ISIS or Al-Qaeda or one of these groups? Now, I was kind of struck, Greg, earlier this morning when the first photos started floating around of him, this suspect or person of interest. They had digitally pixelated part of the pictures. And my understanding is these were the initial pictures put out by German police. Other pictures of the suspects, I guess taken from social media, are floating around today. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, why are we pixelating the photo of someone we're supposed to be on the lookout for?
Right.
What is the point of that? I looked at that and thought, what, am I supposed to be looking for him in Minecraft or something? I'm fairly certain that's not what this guy's eyes look like. Now, a lot of people are saying this, oh my goodness, his ID was found in the truck. This has to be a false flag, Greg. No terrorist would be that dumb to leave his ID in the truck, his tool of terror. Conveniently forgetting that the original bombers of the World Trade Center went back to get the deposit on the truck that they used to try to bomb the World Trade Center. Let's not, overestimate the overwhelming IQ of these aspiring terrorists. Certainly, we hope they catch this guy. It is unnerving to think that he is, we're not stunned the possibility that he's a refugee or he sought asylum. We have no reason. Look, as we mentioned earlier this week, whatever you think of the refugees coming in from Syria and other chaotic places in the Middle East, a lot of these folks are suffering, and God bless them. But there's simply no way you can vet 2 million people in a year safely and ensure that none of them have any sympathies to ISIS or to Islamist terrorism. Most of these folks don't have a paper trail. They don't have an extensive records you can check against. And so it's a very strange it's strange for any German to be surprised to see things like this happening. Hopefully they catch this guy and he doesn't have any accomplices. But needless to say, it's an unnerving turn of events, and hopefully the German police catch this guy really quickly.
Jim, I believe it was President Obama who overseas once said that people are getting up in arms about widows and orphans coming over. So is this a widow or an orphan?
He's a widow and orphan maker.
I guess. Yeah, that's the real truth, unfortunately. Wow. So a lot of people, unfortunately, seeking to do very deadly things and other people making excuses for them. Is your phone bill helping fund those people making excuses for them? Would you switch phone companies if you knew your current carrier was using your money to fund very liberal causes like restricting your Second Amendment rights or promoting abortion through Planned Parenthood? What if there was a liberal phone company targeting conservative candidates and organizations? Would you want to switch to a conservative phone company to help fight against their liberal agenda? Well, the fact is, your current phone carrier might be using your money to undermine your own conservative beliefs. And there is a radical liberal phone company spending tens of millions of dollars to defeat conservative leaders and fight for liberal social change. Well, Patriot Mobile decided to take action.
Patriot Mobile offers nationwide talk and text and high-speed data at competitive prices and donates up to 5% of your monthly bill to the conservative organization of your choice. You will get the same quality service, the latest and greatest devices like the Apple 6 and Galaxy S7, competitive prices, and center-right causes that you believe in. Finally, a mobile phone company that believes what you believe.
Patriot Mobile is America's only conservative phone company and was created to fight for conservative causes and defend conservative candidates. So stand with Patriot Mobile and give voice to your conservative values every time you call, text, or make a status update. Call 1-800-A-PATRIOT right now or go to patriotmobile.com/ricochet to sign up. patriotmobile.com/ricochet. Patriot Mobile, a conservative choice for mobile phone service. Join the conversation. Jim, let's move to our crazy martini now, and Democrats eating their own. Now we're not talking about the Hillary Clinton campaign and what went wrong there. Now we're talking about the race to be the next chairman of the Democratic National Committee. This is courtesy of The Hill. Opponents of Congressman Keith Ellison's bid to be the next Democratic National Committee chairman are raising new questions about the Minnesota Democrats' past to make the case that he's unfit to be the party's next leader. Ellison's critics in the DNC and some supporters of Labor Secretary Tom Perez, the other top candidate, are pointing to the Minnesota Democrats' past tax troubles, campaign finance violations, and minor legal issues that once led to his driver's license being suspended as evidence that he's ill-equipped to lead the DNC. Some of those instances date back to the 1990s. All of the issues have been rectified and were previously used in attacks against Ellison during his first run for the House back in 2006. At that time, Ellison's then-wife, Kim, took responsibility for virtually all of those mistakes, but Ellison's detractors within the DNC say that it's evidence he can't manage his personal life and would be a poor choice to manage an institution the size of the DNC. One guy quoted here, Bob Mulholland, a DNC member from California who will have a vote in the February election. Quote, if Ellison were running as a Republican, Democrats would attack him as a tax cheat. So I have no idea why Washington insiders are urging the grassroots to elect another insider. If you can't drive or pay taxes, you can't organize your life. So I concluded early on that he can't organize for this job. Jim, it's fun to watch the backstabbing here and the infighting on the Democratic side. From a purely conservative standpoint, I think we'd kind of like to see Keith Ellison as the face of the Democratic Party. That could be very advantageous for Republicans. Interesting that they're now digging up their own dirt on their own guy here.
Greg, does this feel at all kind of like when they nailed Capone on tax evasion?
Right.
I mean, besides the literal equivalency of the tax evasion, look, the argument against Ellison from where you and I would sit is like, look, this guy's pretty darn far left, even by the standards of Democrats in Congress. Yes, he used to be a member of the Nation of Islam. He wrote op-eds insisting that Louis Farrakhan was not an anti-Semite. He said U.S. foreign policy is controlled by Israel. I mean, that strikes us as some pretty meaty reasons to not vote for this guy to head up the Democratic Party. Not that you and I are Democrats and we have much say in this, but this, from where we sit, this seems like a real issue. Like $18,000 in a federal lien for unpaid income taxes between 92 and 2000. All right, that's pretty substantial, but it was 16 years ago. Then they go back to the unpaid parking tickets. Look, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Did he have, like all of this stuff seems really kind of long ago and kind of mundane, perhaps is the best word of things like this. And yeah, would this, be an issue? I'm sure there are a lot of campaigns where people have thrown this at each other. Greg, does the chair of the Democratic National Committee, does that job come with a driver?
It should probably, yeah.
So we don't have to worry about the expired driver's license or something. It just seems really weird that this stuff that seems kind of ticky-tack might be enough to derail his bid to be the leader of the Democratic National Committee, but not any of his genuinely troubling ideological problems and things like that. I suppose you'd say any port in a storm. Maybe this will be good. Obviously, some Republicans who think DNC Chair Ellison would be fantastic for them in the coming elections could turn out well. But it really does seem like a very bizarre measuring stick for what certain Democrats find disqualifying. And for what it's worth, he says that the issues with the campaign finance violations back in 2006 are from his wife. He's since divorced the wife. This is more than a decade ago. It feels kind of stretching of all the stuff that's reasonably, at hand. Seems like some very odd choices for what some Democrats find really objectionable about this guy.
So do you think they're actually more bothered about the Farrakhan stuff and those sorts of positions, or are they just trying to clear the way for the guy Obama probably wants, and that's his labor secretary?
There's always the healing power of that it's both. But somebody had said, look, is this the kind of guy who you think is really going to, heal the breach between the party and working class white voters? And a lot of folks on the left looked at that comment from an unnamed Obama administration official and said, there you go. That's this is closeted Islamophobia. If discomfort with the Nation of Islam and a bit of bristling that he's been a staunch defender of Louis Farrakhan in the past makes you a white supremacist, then the word really has no meaning anymore. Right? I mean, at some point you got to apply it to what actually counts there, and you don't have to be some crazed, fringe right winger to find Louis Farrakhan objectionable. And yes, I realize Ellison has said, I had no idea what kind of a person Louis Farrakhan really was. I'm sorry. We just, as somebody pointed out, nobody just goes along with the crowd and defends Louis Farrakhan. You make a decision to hook up with a crowd like that. So that, to me, strikes me as the single most unnerving thing about this, and a legitimate concern that's going to cross party lines. But I think it says something about the mentality of the Democratic Party that even bringing that up is considered ipso facto racism.
How much time do you have to spend around radical Chicago religious figures before you understand who they are? Because apparently you need a lot of time between them.
I see what you did there, Greg. It's almost like the chickens are coming home to roost.
They might be at that. Jim, have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today, and be sure to tune in again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.